Ken Pyle with VOD TV. We're at Parks Associates Connections Conference at CTIA. We're with Tom Williams of ARRIS. Tom, ARRIS has been, you are one of the premier cable vendors, maybe the premier cable vendor, with your own products and then, of course, the acquisition of others. And you're going to be talking about the future of video services. So I think I would like to kind of get your perspective on that, and we'll have a conversation.
Yeah, I think there's a lot going on in the video space, and it continues to be the driving force with any large operator that has multiple channels or multiple services, whether it be voice, video, and data services. Video just continues to be the one service that continues to grow in revenue and what consumers really want to experience. So some of the things and trends that we're seeing in the video space is, of course, multi-screen video, and that's really become a driving force in getting the consumers the content that they want, where they want it, with a good quality of service has really been important. Another important driving factor is really the transformation of the IP video networks. More and more IP delivery video services are occurring. MSOs are putting in new IP services into the home. So that's really leveraging these IP networks, particularly in a cable instance, DOCSIS networks. So more and more capacity is needing. And so, of course, we're leveraged very well in that space. Another big one is kind of the transformation of the home network and what happens in the home. So we're seeing trends where a lot of operators are moving towards things like advanced services in the home, whether that be monitoring of the home through home security or any kind of monitoring of the home with temperature controls and that sort of thing. And that's really happening at a high level. And then that seamless consumer experience. It's great having all these different services out there, multi-screen services, but if the experience isn't good for the consumer, and if it's not seamless across all of these different tablets and TVs and everything else, they just won't be used, and they'll go looking for other services or other service providers to help them. So those are really four key areas that we feel is prime for growth in the video space.
Well, and there's a lot of directions we could go from there. I just, one of the things that struck me is the within the home, delivering these services. It seems like there's, on one hand, we're seeing a lot of things moving to the cloud, but on the other hand, it seems like there's also this increasing importance of a gateway within the home to kind of mediate all this stuff that needs to happen.
You're exactly right, and we're the leader in the video gateway space. We developed our gateway a couple of years ago. It's been well received by particularly cable MSOs, but we're seeing gateways being deployed at AT&T and Verizon. And it's really that central hub of the home. It controls all voice, video, and data services. It all comes in depending on whether it's traditional HFC services or IP video services, and then it's all converted to IP and distributed throughout the home. So that makes it much easier to distribute the content and have the same content on every device that you may have in the home. And that's really where the growth is coming, right? All of these different devices. My own kids, for instance, each have an iPhone. A couple of them have an iPad. There's TVs in each room, and the experience has to be seamless across all of them. So a centralized gateway that provides not just the video services, but data services in the gig range, which is where it's going. 802.11, today in, but certainly AC in the near future, being able to provide telephony services for the home through a centralized box. Ultimately, we see even that IP box at the edge going away. Everything, TVs, everything connecting via IP directly to the gateway. And really, we see that as the demarc point within the home for the service provider.
Well, it's interesting. You mentioned your kids and how they have these 2 or 3 devices, and I suspect that they're using those 2 or 3 devices at once. So what used to be 1 or what is it, 2 or 3 TVs per home is now 2 or 3 devices per person, right?
Yeah, and that's absolutely true. It's costing me a fortune, by the way. but that's what's happening. So they're watching one thing up on the big screen, and then they're playing a video game, and that comes back to creating a seamless user experience, and even creating. And there's some networks out there that have created applications that follow along with the TV programming that's going on at that time, and they can interact with that TV. I think that's going to be a real trend for growth in the future, and I think more and more programmers are going to be doing that and creating this seamless experience between the two by utilizing a gateway in the home that helps facilitate all of that quite well in creating a sync between the programming and the application that you're using on the device.
That makes sense, and it seems like the other opportunity there too is, you mentioned iPhone, and there's a data plan associated with it, and if you hit those limits, that's not a good thing from your bill perspective. So, are you seeing opportunities for the service providers to provide kind of the seamless Wi-Fi offload, so it automatically switches over to the Wi-Fi, so that video program being streamed is, not going to the phone bill?
Yeah, and that's certainly being investigated today. We have a couple of products that help with that. It just happens we have a couple of products with that. And that's what has to happen. So once you walk in the home, we're not just talking about the cellular data offload, but also voice offload as well, and being able to move traffic off of the cellular networks. Certainly they're constrained, and we see that even coming here to Las Vegas. We see right when we land, it's a constrained network, and it's just not built to handle large conferences and that sort of thing. So offload is very important, not just to the cellular providers, but also to the consumers. They're trying to make their applications work in the home.
And moving outside the home, I mean, in the last couple of years, last year, there's been a lot of integration of Wi-Fi in the outside plant, a lot of hotspots. Do you see that as part of kind of this long-term evolution of the service providers to allowing that home extension of the home to the outside world?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the service provider wants to keep this subscriber or consumer on their networks as much as they possibly can. They like them on their networks. They like them utilizing their services to get to the content that they want. And that provides value to the consumer because they're able to find what they're looking for, whatever it may be, whatever content it may be. So this trend of, and in fact, if you look up in the Northeast region, there's a consortium of Comcast, Time Warner, Cablevision that have created where you can log on to even though you may be a Comcast subscriber, logging on to the Cablevision network. So certainly creating these big Wi-Fi networks, helping with offload, keeping them on the MSO's network is important to them, and that's the trends that we're seeing.
That makes sense, and it seems like there's opportunities to kind of take that information and do more with it in terms of now directing programming to the person or advertising.
Well, advertising for sure, and again, that's a trend that we're seeing is more targeted advertising, not just zoned, but targeted to the individual, making sure that the individual gets the right advertising that they're looking for. Things like Facebook is certainly doing that. They're watching what you like and know where you are, and they're